I always thought being the person people leaned on was a gift, a sign that I mattered, but somewhere along the way, I realized it had become my identity. And when I finally needed someone to lean back on, the ones I'd stood by in harder times simply weren't there. From high school sleepovers to late-night college breakdowns, I was the dependable friend, the one who stayed up, made snacks, held tissues, and nodded while everyone else poured their hearts out. I believed that if I showed up enough, if I listened with the calm, patient focus I worked so hard to cultivate, I would be seen as someone who mattered. I kept silence for others until my own voice was lost somewhere underneath the responsibilities I assumed. In college, I carried the title of group therapist. Among my friends, I attended every breakup night, supported late-night deadline crises, gave pep talks before presentations, and remained silent about my own anxieties. I didn't even think to share them, because who would listen to the listener? And when I tried tentative phone texts like "could use someone tonight," I got blank read receipts, vague "I'm busy" excuses, or silence. It only happened twice at first, so I passed it off as coincidence, someone busy or off my schedule. But as the times added up, friends drifting, roommates silent, messages ignored, it cut deeper. The silence wasn't just a missed check-in. It became a message: you don't need support. It stung in ways nothing else did. I stopped sleeping through the nights because my mind circled the irony of how I offered warmth and care like a bright lamppost on dark sidewalks. Yet when I flicked a switch on my own lamp, the light didn't come on. I felt like I had become a public resource. You know, I'll be there, so you don't think twice. And when I needed someone, the system had no place for me. That's when I realized this wasn't just loneliness or being overlooked. This was burnout wrapped in betrayal. From that point, I began watching relationships through a different lens. Was I valued for me, or only as a shoulder to lean on? And the answers were hard to digest. I could see the distance creeping in before I gave up my seat, or volunteered to plan another gathering, or answered a midnight text again. Invitations would stop coming. Responses would go quieter. And halfway between being hurt and being ashamed, I'd question, was I being too needy? But one quiet full morning in my 24th year, after a fit of anxiety sent me awake at 3 a.m. with a familiar dizziness, I realized I couldn't coast on silence forever. I sent out a group chat message. "Hey guys, had a rough night. Just wanted you to know." There were emojis, of course, but mostly silence. I stared at the screen until the group disconnected. One friend followed up 2 days later, but by then I'd bottled up so much resentment I didn't respond. I had turned into exactly the kind of ghost I wanted to wake up with. That realization felt like stepping off a cliff. I couldn't go back to being the always available friend because I was exhausted, and the silence in response had made me small. So I started to shift. It looked like little things at first: declining a late night text that pulled me into someone else's drama, saying I'd prefer to just sleep tonight, or simply not answering joyless Friday invites. When my best friend asked if I was okay, I admitted, I'm tired of being the listener who no one listens back to. I was as brutal to say out loud as to hear, but that confession changed everything. The worst fallout didn't come all at once. It was a slow unraveling. Some friends apologized, admitting they'd been wrapped up in their own worlds. Others said, subtly, I didn't realize, or I never knew. A few never responded. I heard in waves, grief for the friends who drifted, guilt for creating distance, relief for honoring myself. I began volunteering for myself, asking for support when I was struggling instead of just giving it. I started seeing a therapist consistently, not because something was wrong, but because I was tired of ignoring how much I'd carried for so long. I learned it's not weak to need. It's human. You don't have to be everyone's rock at the expense of your own. I learned how to say I need time to people who needed time, and I matter to two people who forgot to say it back. I discovered that the relationships that stayed were deeper and more balanced. People who didn't just pull the weight off me, but helped me carry the load with me. Some friendships reshaped themselves. We laughed about how I'd always been the message responder, and they listened when I cracked for once. Some faded and I let them go, not out of hate, but because I realized people change. And friendship doesn't always last when one side stops serving. The hardest part was rewriting my own story. I had tied my worth to being the listener, and now I needed to learn self-worth through presence. vulnerability, and sometimes silence. I practiced self-care strategies like 1 hour blocks of no texts, private journaling, early bedtimes that weren't for someone else, coffee dates with me, myself. And the first and in those 50 quiet mornings, I wrote messages I could have sent and always deleted. I miss talking to you. I needed you. The truth in those drafts wasn't lost, they were lessons in humanity. Today, I still respond with care to others, but I don't do it for my identity anymore. I do it because I want to. And when I need someone, I trust that someone will answer, not just because I should deserve that, but because we all deserve it, to be seen, heard, and helped in moments of vulnerability. Because no one is stronger just for carrying alone.